Next speaker is Canada, followed by Ethiopia, and then Spain. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Canada commends WHO for its leadership and coordination efforts in responding to COVID-19 and ongoing crises and health emergencies around the world, including in Afghanistan, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Somalia, South Sudan, Syrian Arab Republic, Yemen, and most recently in Ukraine. We thank the Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee for the report and welcome the recommendations to address persistent gaps related to emergency management, accountability, capacity, and financing. We note with interest the committee's recommendation to finalize and implement the new strategy for the Contingency Fund for Emergencies, replenishment mechanism, disbursement criteria, and operating processes. Canada is proud to be among the leading donors of the WHO Contingency Fund for Emergencies. We appreciate how rapidly the CFE can be mobilized and in response to a health response when time is of the essence, and we encourage member states to substantially finance this mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Canada. We now move to Ethiopia, followed by Spain.
Thank you, Chair. The Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia would like to note the report by the Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee that laid important recommendations for strengthening public health emergencies, preparedness, and response. Ethiopia has made remarkable progress in the achievement targets set in the Health Sector Transformation Plan and global commitments. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought about important lessons to improved coordination, sense of urgency, and local innovation. Currently, Ethiopia is also facing complex humanitarian emergencies that require even greater coordination, improved supply chain, increased financing and resources to ensure the continuity of essential health services. There's an ongoing work regarding the context-relevant implementation of sustainable and flexible funding at the government level, but this needs close support, alignment, and collaboration with WHO and other stakeholders. Ethiopia would like to reiterate the need to avoid fragmentation across current initiatives and ensure smooth alignment of the WHO program among the different health system strengthening programs, especially the routine emergency care system that serves as a substrate for the larger public health emergencies. In alignment with the regional statement for Africa delivered by Senegal and South Africa, Ethiopia would like to emphasize on the recommendation for increased and sustainable financing for emergency response and bridging the transition to develop activities with increased investment in health system strengthening efforts to ensure resilience. We also highlight the need for an expedited procurement system and supply chain arrangements to ensure timely delivery of the required services. Taking the lessons learned from the COVID pandemic, we commend WHO's vision to strengthen the country offices and would like to call upon further strengthening on the implementation of the surveillance system for attacks. Ethiopia remains committed to enhancing a more comprehensive and agile system for emergency preparedness, readiness and response, and in providing meaningful contribution to facilitate the strive towards protecting people from health emergencies. I thank you.
Thank you, Ethiopia. I now hand the floor over to the delegate of Spain, followed by China. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chair. Spain supports the statement made by France on behalf of the European Union and its member states, and we are grateful for the reports by WHO describing its work in health emergencies. Spain has participated very actively and with great interest in the process of studying, analysing and proposing conclusions within the working group on strengthening WHO preparedness and response to health emergencies. And Spain is convinced of the important leadership role that WHO should play in preparedness and response to public health emergencies. That's why we believe that we need to strengthen its governance so that it can be swifter and more efficient. We share the views expressed by a number of member states on amendments to the IHR, which are the best possible mechanism for implementing the recommendations that have come out of the various pandemic assessment panels and indeed from member states. Quite apart from amending the IHR or developing new instruments for prevention, preparedness and response to pandemics, we believe that we also need to improve preparedness and response through strengthening capacities at local level in a sustainable way. So that must also accompany this whole process. Spain recognizes that many of the lessons learned in the pandemic were already known of following previous emergencies, and yet no corrective measures were taken. So that's why we should underscore the need to ensure that these lessons become tangible actions to address the issues to ensure global public health security. Thank you.
Sorry. I'd like to give floor to China, followed by India, and then Jamaica. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, President. We thank the evaluation carried out by the IOAC and the WHO's unremitting efforts to prepare for health emergencies, strengthen national emergency preparedness and response, and prevent pandemics and epidemics, and in rapid detection and response. We are of the view that WHO's work in health emergencies in 2021 is effective, especially the active and effective response to the Ebola outbreak in DRC and Guinea, and the support in response to complex emergencies across the world in the face of the global COVID-19 pandemic. WHO supports countries, especially vulnerable countries, and has made important contributions to suppressing transmission, reducing exposure, protecting vulnerable populations, and saving lives. We note that the report of the IOAC evaluated the existing issues in WHO health emergency management and response to the COVID-19 pandemic and lessons learned, and made recommendations. The IOAC rightly pointed out the discrepancy between well-proven measures to control COVID-19 and the actions taken by decision-makers in many countries to discontinue these measures while transmission remains widespread. And equity is imperative to ending this pandemic. We support these recommendations. We hope the Secretariat and the Director General will implement these recommendations and provide regular updates to members on implementation. At present, China puts its people and their lives above anything else. Our strategy is to avoid imported COVID cases and prevent the rebound of domestic cases. We have a zero COVID case policy. We adjust prevention and control measures according to the real situation and make plans for COVID control and ensure economic and social development. Major strategic achievements have been achieved, and it has been proved that China's control measures are scientific. We suggest that in the field of health emergency response, in view of different national conditions, policies, priorities, and capabilities, each member state's autonomy to adopt a differentiated prevention and control strategy should be respected. We should continue to adhere to scientific decision-making and professional honor in policy formulation and practice of public health or clinical diagnosis and treatment, and seek the health and well-being of the broadest group of people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is India, followed by Jamaica, and then Singapore. India, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. India takes note of the IOAC report, which is pertinent in the wake of continuing COVID-19 pandemic and its socio-economic impact globally. Chair, India agrees with the health emergency program has suffered from chronic financial and staffing constraints, and the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted that the health emergency program is inadequately equipped to deal with a global pandemic, while simultaneously responding to other health emergencies. IOAC has observed that during the first few months of COVID-19 outbreak, majority of countries failed to sufficiently implement the necessary public health measures such as early detection, contact tracing, isolation, and individual protective measures. We believe that it should also emphasize upon the need for unambiguous, direct, and timely risk communication by WHO as UN's chief coordinating agency in this regard. Delays in declaring public health emergency of international concern and pandemic by WHO, and conflicting technical advices by technical experts at WHO had a direct bearing on actions taken by member states. We agree with IOAC's observation that Act A failed to provide the requisite results owing to shortfalls of political will and global solidarity, limited production capacity of vaccines, and insufficient financial investment. India feels that consensus building by WHO on this issue is a crucial unfinished agenda, as it perpetuates inequity in diagnostics, drugs, and vaccines, and needs to be addressed through a member states-led process on priority. India further agrees with IOAC that equity is imperative to end this pandemic and accordingly suggests that WHO should consider improving access through negotiated intellectual property rights waivers. India reiterates that vaccine inequity has brought to the fore the inevitable need to discuss and negotiate an access and benefit sharing framework for sharing of human pathogens of pandemic potential, including genetic sequence information, in a manner that also protects the rights of member states under the Convention on Biological Diversity and the Nagoya Protocol on Access and Benefit Sharing. These principles invariably need to be incorporated in letter and spirit in formative discussions of new initiatives like WHO BioHub. India would also like to suggest that while receiving financial support from non-state actors for health emergency prevention, preparedness, and response, WHO should ensure that donor funds are not utilized for standard setting and normative purposes, strictly in accordance with the principles of FENSA. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Before giving floor to following delegates, I will have one small announcement. That is informal discussion with regards to Conference Paper 7 entitled Strengthening WHO Preparedness for and Response to Health Emergency, Proposal for Amendment to the International Health Regulation. The conversation has begun yesterday, and there is a lot of progress is coming. The meeting room is arranged. Room 24 is available from 12:30 at room 24. So all member states are welcome to participate. But please note that there will be no interpretation. The meetings start from, informal meetings start from 12:30 in room 24. Then we will come back to delegations' contribution. Next speaker is Jamaica, followed by Singapore, and then Indonesia. Jamaica, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Chair, you hear me? Oh, Chair, Jamaica thanks the Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee for its detailed report. The concerns noted by the committee are replicated at the country level, and we agree that the lessons learned in the pandemic should be utilized to build resilience. Jamaica notes the value placed by the IOAC on having a structured health emergency program with adequate human and financial resources and the ability to scale up and down as required. Jamaica's own emergency program is coordinated at the national level and has an organization-wide network that was of great value in managing the pandemic. We'd like to recognize the tremendous value and work done by PAHO in building capacity for health emergency operation centers in Jamaica. Jamaica will embark on a primary healthcare reform this year that includes the building out of the structure of emergency disaster management at the regional and parish levels with dedicated staff and infrastructure. This will take us a step further in enhancing our preparedness and response capacities for all hazards. The concern for mental health and well-being of staff was brought home forcefully in the pandemic. The importance of including mental well-being for healthcare workers in any emergency response program is a necessity. Throughout the pandemic, Jamaica has had to institute various measures to tackle burnout and mental stress amongst healthcare workers. This includes therapeutic webinars for healthcare workers, a staff welfare program, and a collaboration with the private sector to provide counseling in hospitals. We look forward to the guidance to be provided by WHO in embedding staff mental health and well-being in the health emergencies program. The concern for incivility of social media towards science has been a major challenge in the pandemic and has had a major impact on vaccination rollout globally. Going forward in this new age, we where non-traditional media is relied upon, especially by the age groups that are more difficult to reach for health messages, it is critical that the WHO provides early interventions and support to countries on effective communication to counter negative information. With the IOAC, Jamaica also recognized the significant progress that can be made with engaging with partners outside of health to strengthen external communications and to lead a unified response. Throughout the pandemic, the Ministry of Health and Wellness engaged with the private sector, NGOs, and civil society to enhance communication of key messages and reach into the population. In conclusion, Chair, Jamaica supports recommendations to improve the organization of the World Health Emergency Program and to provide additional resources to the program. WHO is indeed the global leader for health emergencies and as such should provide the best example for countries in allocation of resources for health priorities. And I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Singapore, followed by Indonesia and then Republic of Korea. Singapore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Singapore would like to thank the IOAC for its report and contribute 3 points. First, the lack of clarity of roles and responsibilities, lines of reporting, as well as power dynamics throughout WHO is concerning. This impacts performance negatively. We would recommend that the WHO focus on strengthening performance management as a key priority area. Establishing the right system to reward the right behaviors and persons is fundamental to organizational culture. Second, Singapore agrees with the IOAC that regional or intermediate PHEICs are not the right approach. The interconnectedness of the world today means that the pathogen of pandemic potential could spread to various parts of the globe within a matter of few days, regardless of origin. While we can see the benefits of a graded approach, for example, based on differing levels of uncertainty, such a framework should be kept as simple as possible. This would make clear what actions would need to be done and aid in public communications. Third, Singapore welcomes the establishment of the Standing Committee of Health Emergency Prevention, Preparedness and Response, which will better strengthen the communication and coordination between member states and the WHO Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Indonesia, followed by Republic of Korea and then Argentina. Indonesia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We note the recommendations made by the IOC on human resources, finance, WHR, country preparedness, WHO role in COVID-19 and future pandemic, as well as future global health architecture for pandemic preparedness and response. We appreciate the complementary nature of the IOC report with the other recommendation put forward and discussed in various ongoing discussion on the global architecture for health emergency preparedness and response. We support the call to strengthening countries' commitment to prevent the spread of disease and public health risk factor between countries as set out in the International Health Regulation 2005. District or city areas as part of the state must have the capacity for prevention, early detection and response to improve national preparedness and resilience for public health emergencies. In this regard, the IOC recommendation needs to be translated into both concrete and concerted action. It is important that actions are not duplicative and fragmented at global, regional, and national level. WHO needs to ensure it is work together as one organization across the 3 levels with collective responsibility and shared accountability to assist member states. Finally, we commend the tireless work of WHO in addressing global health emergencies. We remain steadfast in our support of WHO current and future work and the need to make WHO more agile through, among others, a sustainable contingency fund for emergency as part of, and complement the ongoing global effort in strengthening global health resilience. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Republic of Korea, followed by Argentina and then Germany. Republic of Korea, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The Republic of Korea welcomes the report submitted by the Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee, the IOAC, on public health emergencies and supports recommendations therein on major gaps. We also commend the IOAC for their comprehensive work. Korea thank you parting chair Dr. Felicity for her contribution and excellent leadership. We also welcome Dr. Ahmed, the coming chair. Korea will continue to work closely with the IOAC. We would like to highlight some points in the report which brought Korea's attention. Korea agrees that WHO has to play a leadership role in ensuring the equitable access to medical countermeasures. WHO has led several innovative initiatives, such as WHO Hub System and ACT-A. Korea recently pledged to contribute additional $300 million USD to ACT-A from 2023 and commits to increase assessed contributions. As the hosting country of the WHO Global Biomanufacturing Workforce Training Hub, we will fully cooperate with the WHO to strengthen vaccine and biopharmaceutical manufacturing capacity of LMICs. My delegation fully supports the recommendation of the IOAC on international health regulations. Targeted amendment of the IHR should be timely, and we consider the work of IMB on a treaty, international convention, or instrument for pandemic preparedness and response, and working group on IHR is complementary. We also emphasize the support to the WHO is imperative for Secretary to continue supporting the capacity building of the countries to help them better comply with the IHR. And finally, the Republic of Korea supports IOAC recommendation on addressing misinformation. Misinformation and false narratives hinder agile public health strategies implementation. To achieve the global vaccination goal and prepare for the future pandemic, invest in these communications is urgent priority. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Argentina, followed by Germany, and then Togo. Argentina, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Thank you, Chair. We wish to thank the IOAC for its report and recommendations. Argentina continues to support the central role of WHO in developing the governance structure for the global health architecture. At the same time, we'd like to share our concern about the possible fragmentation of current initiatives regarding the future of the global health architecture, regarding preparedness and response to pandemics. We underscore the importance of the World Health Emergencies Program within the WHO, and particularly the key role it played during the COVID-19 pandemic. However, we are concerned by the creation of other initiatives or groups, including outside of the WHO, with mandates that may undermine the functions of the Emergencies Program. Regarding sustainable financing, we've already spoken on the issue in the PBAC and here at the Assembly, and we reiterate our commitment for the strengthening of WHO. We are fully prepared to continue working on and discussing various options to ensure sustainable financing, but we should remember the financial challenges faced by countries in our region, as well as the fact that they contribute both to the PAHO and to WHO. Finally, we join calls for an equitable approach to guarantee access and distribution of vaccines on the basis of the principles of solidarity and international cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Germany, followed by Togo, and then Colombia. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Germany aligns itself with a statement delivered by France on behalf of the EU. The World Health Emergency Program continues to be overstretched and understaffed. The IHR management with high level of short-term contracts is a concern, and it must be adequately addressed. Given these circumstances, the program does a great job despite occasional unacceptable derailments such as in the DRC. Unfortunately, this is often at the expense of the mental health and well-being of staff. The IOAC speaks of intolerable level of toxicity and incivility on social media towards science against WHO and its staff members, and we appreciate that the IAOC is drawing attention to this issue. Many of the problems result from the chronic underfunding. We fully agree with the IOAC that the solutions formulated by the Working Group on Sustainable Financing will be the single most important contribution to the improvement of the program. Over the course of the 3 pandemic years, WHO has strengthened its leadership position in the global response. Not surprisingly, Germany believes that WHO should play a central role not only in the global health architecture for pandemic preparedness and response, but also in the discussions on this topic. And certainly this is also linked to a needed central role of the WHO in the new 5th that will be created. Against this background, we appreciate the DG's paper on this topic. Finally, we would like to wholeheartedly thank the 2 co-chairs for their outstanding leadership over the past years. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Togo, followed by Colombia, and then Nicaragua. Togo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Togo supports the statement made by Senegal on behalf of member states of the African region. Togo has taken note of the conclusions of the Executive Board, which highlight the importance of strengthening the WHO Health Emergencies Program and the Contingency Fund for Emergencies. Despite the successful reforms begun in 2016 when it comes to emergencies, the COVID-19 pandemic highlighted weaknesses in preparation and response, as well as obstacles to health security for all. Healthcare systems were overwhelmed, and the implementation of the IHR of 2005 betrayed shortcomings. Togo, with the support of its partners, was able to manage various public health situations such as COVID-19, Lassa viral hemorrhagic fever, cholera, yellow fever, and measles, and prevent an explosive outbreak of cases or excessive strain on the healthcare system. However, there still are massive challenges to be addressed, including timely availability of financial resources, the availability of qualified healthcare staff, the compliance by communities with various public health measures, and the implementation of recovery plans, as well as the protection of health workers during health emergencies. Togo calls for global solidarity based on a spirit of equity so that the needs of populations can be met in accordance with the principles of human rights. Togo commends the important role played by the WHO and its actions to address health emergencies. Togo takes note of the report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Colombia, followed by Nicaragua, and the last speaker, Georgia. Colombia, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the IOAC for its report and for its recommendations, and we support the central role of WHO and its World Health Emergencies Program in responding to complex emergencies. We would like to pay tribute to the Director General and thank him for his report on the work of WHO on health emergencies. We welcome the comprehensive data that's been provided for the prevention, preparedness and response to emergencies at a national, regional and international level. The information that's been provided draws attention to the importance of dealing with world health emergencies and strengthening global health architecture, and the need to continue to guarantee access to healthcare in the current crisis relating to the climate, COVID-19 and conflict. Colombia has promoted and adopted the relevant standards for the protection of health workers. We condemn any attack on health workers, and particularly those working in humanitarian situations, and we support the strengthening of measures that guarantee the safety of healthcare workers and humanitarian workers more generally. Chair, we thank the Director General for the updated report on the health situation in Ukraine. It's a matter of great concern that attacks on healthcare facilities continue, including those on hospitals and medical transport, healthcare workers, patients, and storage facilities. And once again, we condemn attacks on civilian populations that have led to more than 8,000 civilian victims, interruption of maternal care, led to an increase in the outbreak of communicable diseases, including COVID-19, measles, and others, and it's also exacerbated mental health problems and other health problems in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Nicaragua and then Georgia. Nicaragua, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And on behalf of the government and people of Nicaragua, we would like to thank the IOAC for its report. And as a developing country, we have witnessed the solidarity and international cooperation from Cuba, India, the Russian Federation, China, and I'd like to take this opportunity to reiterate our support for the principle of one China. All of this has helped Nicaragua ensure 90% vaccination coverage with over 5 million vaccines that have been provided successfully. We thank WHO, COVAX, and Gavi, and other initiatives that have helped us respond to emergencies such as COVID-19. We need to continue to avoid the politicization of WHO's work. The right to health is a human right. And to conclude, we recognize the work that's been done by the working groups, and in particular the working group on sustainable financing, on strengthening WHO's response to emergencies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The last speaker is Georgia. You have the floor.
And at the outset, let me express our full solidarity and support to Ukraine. We are gravely concerned over the ongoing health emergency in Ukraine, resulting in conflict-related casualties as well as increased risks of illness and deaths from non-communicable and infectious disease, gender-based violence, and of sexual and reproductive health, including maternal and child health deterioration. We stress the importance of ensuring respect for international humanitarian law, including protection of all medical personnel and humanitarian personnel exclusively engaged in medical duties. We appreciate the work and efforts of the WHO in this extremely difficult situation and pay tribute to those who lost their lives while trying to assist others. We underline the necessity of ensuring safe, rapid, and unhindered access to populations in need of assistance by the staff of the WHO on the ground and by all other medical and humanitarian personnel. As the co-sponsors of the resolution submitted by the Ukraine, we strongly support its goals. We reiterate Georgia's unwavering support to Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders, including Crimea and Donbass, as well as for Ukraine's navigational rights in its territorial waters. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. This concludes my list of delegation speakers. So let me explain what I am planning to do. This order, I will invite contribution from non-state actors, international organizations, and this is one slot, followed by response from chair of IOAC and secretariat. Then we will consider whether committee is going to agree the reports. So that is the work of this morning. I have about 45 minutes, and we will work hard to complete by lunchtime. So that is my objective. And at the end, before closing this morning session, I have a few announcements to make sure that everybody on the same page to go for afternoon session, which you have already decided a sort of method to do. So in other words, in my view, you have already taken non-stop train tickets. So I will make sure what does it mean. So that is the end of the day. And also I have a few announcements because that I will let you know. Then now I start inviting observers, international organizations, and non-state actors in official relations who wish to speak. In a conformity with Rule 47 of Rule of Procedures of the World Health Assembly concerning the representatives of United Nations and other intergovernmental organizations, I'm wondering whether UNFPA is willing to take the floor now. UNFPA, are you present and willing to speak? I don't think UNFPA representative is not ready to speak, so I will go to inviting non-state actors in official relationship with WHO who wish to speak. First, may I invite the World Medical Association to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable Chairperson, distinguished delegates, the COVID-19 pandemic has had devastating effects on societies with economic impacts that far outweigh those of previous pandemics. We are at even greater risk of emergencies due to environmental degradation, climate change, rapid urbanization, and increasing international travels, and the current geopolitical crises have also caused large waves of migration. To better protect the future, we need a global coordinated response system, mechanisms to ensure resilient healthcare systems offering UHC integrated within PHC care, a strong and well-supported health workforce, as well as harmonized health emergency preparedness and response systems at regional and international levels. The WMA, which represents 9 million physicians globally, supports the DG's white paper and highlights the importance of strengthening the WHO Health Emergencies Program and the Contingency Fund for Emergencies through sustainable financing. No one is safe until we are all safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You give us example of exactly 1 minute. Thank you very much. I will just lead out those who applied to take the floor so that you can start immediately. International Federation of Medical Students Associations, the Save the Children Fund, International Baby Food Action Network, International Pharmaceutical Students Federation, Medicus Mundi International Network, Health for All, Public Services International, International Union for Health Promotion and Education. I will call by this order. The next speaker is International Federation of Medical Students Associations. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chairperson, distinguished delegates. The International Federation of Medical Students Associations recognizes the WHO and member states for placing adequate relevance into public health emergencies by working on an international instrument on pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. We call upon the WHO and member states to put into practice the adopted resolution by completing the development and adoption of this WHO international instrument, while meaningfully involving the youth throughout the process, including implementation and follow-up through monitoring and evaluation. We are confident that we will be able to use the current momentum to lay the foundations for better pandemic preparedness and response by involving the relevant players, in which engaging youth is crucial. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is the Save the Children Fund. You have the floor.
Conflicts and the climate crisis are disrupting the lives of children and their families at an unprecedented scale, jeopardizing progress towards the SDGs and deepening inequalities. Therefore, it is critical that all children, including those most impacted by inequality and discrimination, are protected and can access essential health services they need, even in emergencies. Save the Children calls on member states to ensure the continuity of all essential health and nutrition services and prioritize the protection of health and humanitarian personnel in emergencies. Strengthen mental health and psychosocial support, including dedicated financing needed to address pre-existing gaps and sustainably strengthen mental health in public health systems. Mobilize financial and technical resources to ensure equitable access to COVID-19 tools to reach the target of 70% of all countries vaccinated by the mid-2022. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is International Baby Food Action Network. Floor is yours.
Breastfeeding is a resilient practice that provides food, care, immune support, and protection from the worst of emergency conditions. We must remember that breastfeeding prevents malnutrition in all its forms. Breastfeeding and conflicts of interest safeguards must be consistently integrated into all emergency prevention and management policies. as poverty rates, economic disparity, conflicts, hunger arising, short-term treatment models that rely on market-led approaches and fail to recognize how companies undermine health and the environment pose serious risks to child health. Ready-to-use therapeutic foods should not be on retail sale and should be used only in programs that promote skin-to-skin contact, relactation, and continuation of breastfeeding with appropriate transition to nutritious family food and psychosocial support. Micronutrient interventions should be culturally appropriate and not undermine sustainable food production, food security, and biodiversity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is International Pharmaceutical Students Federation. Floor is yours.
Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates, International Pharmaceutical Student Federation, representing over 500,000 pharmacy students worldwide, emphasizes the importance of strengthening response to health emergencies. With COVID-19 pandemic and recent health emergencies, healthcare systems around the world face major challenges in their preparedness and agility. IPS calls on the WHO and its member states to deploy healthcare trainees to their fullest potential, fighting against health emergencies. This includes granting students specific scope of practice within their profession tailored to their knowledge and experience. Specifically, this may include, but not limited to, preparing and administering vaccines, testing for disease screening, providing specific patient education and care activities. Furthermore, IPS urges WHO and its member states to recognize and support youth-led initiative. Youth took on a major role of reserve health workforce during the pandemic, demonstrating immense passion and initiative in public health as future leaders of healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Medical Mundi International, a network Health for All. You are invited to speak.
Thank you, Chair. We support the IOAC's recommendation of fostering WHO's leadership role during public health emergencies. WHO's core budget must be significantly increased to ensure adequate running of emergency responses. We are concerned that the IOAC's position on the allocation mechanisms and Act A is inadequate. We urge WHO and member states to call for legally binding solutions and equitable access, and for reforming the Act A governance structure to make it inclusive of all member states, including developing countries. In paragraph 46, IOAC highlights the importance of strengthening IHR. We are concerned that its stance favors developed countries' views and ignores calls from developing countries and EV decision 150, item 3, to address equity issues in IHR. Finally, multi-stakeholder platforms.
Would you mind to conclude? You are exceeding time. Please conclude now.
What?
It's all right? You conclude.
Finally, multi-stakeholder platforms such as Act A have failed the test of equity.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Public Service International. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Health emergencies of existential proportions are emerging within a context of increasing zoonotic disease outbreaks, climate and ecological crisis, mass poverty, and wars. We urge WHO and the member states to, first, reform global health supply chains regionally and with national industrial policies that quicken emergency response. Second, fully implement international covenants and regulations which safeguard the physical and mental health of public emergency service workers. Third, adequately fund preparedness and response activities and sustainable fund of the WHO Contingency Fund of Emergencies. Fourth, strengthen universal public health systems as the bulwark for preparedness and commit to do this in the emerging global architecture of health emergency preparedness, response and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I invite International Union for Health Promotion and Education? International Union for Health Promotion and Education. Are you ready to take the floor? Are you ready? Not here, it seems. It seems they are not here. We have received one recorded statement. So shall we, Secretary can display the video?
Say the name from Federation.
So the name of non-state actors who send us a recorded statement is Federation Handicap International, Humanity and Inclusion. I see there is some technical challenge, so we will come back when Secretariat is ready to display the video statement. Then I would like to go to the next stage. That is to invite responses from IOC Chair and Secretariat. First, I would like to invite Dr. Felicity Harvey, the Chair of Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee for the WHO Health Emergency Programs. If she would like to take the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honourable Ministers, Excellencies, Heads of Delegation, distinguished colleagues, IOAC is grateful to Member States for your insightful comments and the appreciation of our work, in particular from Senegal on behalf of the African region, Sudan on behalf of EMRO, France on behalf of the European region, Argentina, Australia, Bangladesh, China, Canada, Germany, India, Indonesia, Jamaica, Nicaragua, Philippines, Republic of Korea, Singapore, Thailand, Uruguay, United Kingdom, and United States of America. I thank Senegal for highlighting the key challenges in pandemic preparedness and response and on inadequate financing and disparities in the African region, and Sudan on behalf of EMRO for pointing out the increased frequency of national disasters and link to climate change. Our report noted a chronic shortage of flexible and sustainable financing in WHO's work on health emergencies. We are confident and hopeful that the Member States' decision to increase assessed contributions will have a transformational effect on this important area of work. We reiterate our recommendations for increasing investment for preparedness at national and international levels to support countries with preparedness activities. And we fully appreciate the comments from Australia, Thailand, United Kingdom, and the United States of America and France on behalf of the EU on PRSEAH. This is a key area of concern for us, and we will continue to monitor progress. We thank Malaysia, Singapore, and Sudan on behalf of EMRO for empathising with the importance of the clear accountability framework in emergencies. This is of great importance to us. And we have duly noted the comments of Brazil with regard to the challenges and bottlenecks for access to medical countermeasures and delivery in countries, and we would be very happy to exchange views. IOAC reiterates equity is imperative to ending this pandemic. We also welcome Australia's comment on the new standing committee to the Executive Board, which will enable more Member States' engagement and the IOAC and support to the WHO programme. We're delighted to hear Member States' strong support for a strengthened WHO at the centre of the architecture which should be based on the principles of equity, inclusivity, and coherence, as many member states highlighted. Member states' comments and recommendations on IHR, UHPR, the WHE programme, infodemic, misinformation, human resources were noted, and we will continue our monitoring of these areas. We thank all member states for your support for our recommendations. This is really important to us, and we are very grateful for your support and trust. We reiterate our commitment to continuing delivering on our mandate and will work closely with the INB, WGPR, WGSF, and other working groups. On a personal note, I wonder if I might take this opportunity to express my deep gratitude to Dr. Tedros, regional directors, Dr. Mike Ryan and Dr. Katerina Boehm for their confidence in me as the co-chair of IOAC, and the IOAC Secretary Munju Park for unstintingly supporting me to fulfill my role over the last 4 years. I also wish to add my sincere thanks to my co-chair and esteemed friend and colleague, Dr. Geeta Ragupta. May I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harvey. Much appreciated. And with regards to video statement, I said earlier, instead of sending a video statement, Federation Handicap International representative made a special journey to come here to present himself or herself. So may I invite Federation Handicap International Humanity and Inclusion to deliver statements. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Rehabilitation is a core element of emergency response. Early rehabilitation prevents or reduces complications, speeds hospital discharge, promotes long-term recovery, and facilitates independent living. Handicap International Federation, supported by the RELAB HS Consortium and the Global Rehabilitation Alliance, calls on member states to elevate WHO's emergency functions. Rehabilitation and provision of assistive technology must be incorporated in all health emergency responses at all levels of care. Professionals must be equipped to meet early rehabilitation needs in emergencies and those of people with pre-existing disabilities or chronic health conditions. Strengthening local rehabilitation capacity requires leadership and vision. A WHA resolution on rehabilitation, encompassing rehabilitation in emergencies, will strengthen member states' efforts to improve services. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to give floor to the Secretariat. As IOC report illustrated, regional offices play very important roles. So I will have privilege to invite two regional representatives, actually very high officials of regional offices. Firstly, I would like to invite Dr. Richard Brennan, Regional Emergency Director, who will speak on behalf of our Regional Director, Dr. Admandali, WHO Regional Director for the Eastern Mediterranean. Now I give floor to Dr. Brennan. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Let me begin by thanking the IOAC and the Director General for their reports. Special thanks to the IOAC co-chairs, Dr. Felicity Harvey and Dr. Geeta Gupta, for their leadership, wisdom, and guidance. Chair, it is hard to think of a time in history when our world was challenged by as many crises as we are today. The COVID-19 pandemic, conflict and displacement, severe weather events, accelerating food insecurity, concurrent outbreaks, and the global economic slowdown. The list seems almost endless. Most of these crises call for collective action, but even in this regard, we are challenged, as there is also a crisis of global governance. Political polarization, growing nationalism, and deliberate disinformation are undermining our resolve to tackle the world's most urgent problems. We have the knowledge, we have the resources, we have the technology to fix most of them. The only thing limiting us from bequeathing a legacy of peace and prosperity are the decisions we make as leaders. In this regard, it is striking that of the 343 recommendations from the 23 reviews of the COVID-19 response, 50% of them address leadership. This is a call for us as public health leaders as much as it is for our political leaders. The theme of this year's World Health Assembly is Health for Peace, Peace for Health. In this spirit, we should ask what we can do collectively to effectively tackle the many crises and risks facing us. As the director of a region beset by multiple conflicts and emergencies, I urge you to consider the health and well-being of the most vulnerable as your major priority. Our communities are discouraged and our frontline health workers are exhausted. They need to know that we have their best interests at heart. As per the Director General's report, some tremendous progress has been made. Far greater progress is possible if we adopt the priority recommendations from the IOAC, the IPPPR, and other reports and execute on their implementation. We owe our communities nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I invite Dr. Lyon to respond? You have the floor.
My apologies. I was deferring to the second regional director. Sorry, let's get rid of this. Okay, I'm sure you're all looking forward to a well-earned break after this morning, so I won't delay you with my comments being too detailed. Again, thanks to Dr. Harvey and Dr. Rao Gupta for your wonderful leadership of the IOAC. You certainly have held us to account, and we appreciate your constructive criticisms and inputs to the development of the programme. And to Walid Amar, Walid, welcome on board, and we hope you'll be just as tough as Felicity and Gita were. I will defer any comments on the situation in Ukraine. We have submitted a report on the situation in Ukraine, and this will be discussed in the following session. Just safe to say that the whole of the organisation is striving to support all people affected by the war in Ukraine, both inside and out, as we do in the over 80 graded emergencies that we responded to in the last year. The World Health Assembly's vision of delivering and improving WHO's work on emergencies to be delivered and coordinated by a new emergencies programme operating at all levels of the organisation was aimed at bringing an alignment and coherence in the work of WHO in terms of readiness, speed, agility, scale and accountability in the service of our member states and the communities that you serve. We continue to strive to do this as a programme, despite major financial, administrative, organisational and managerial impediments to achieving that and delivering on your vision. Many of you have made specific comments in relation to national and emergency management capacities, the incident management system, emergency response framework. It is wonderful, quite frankly, to hear these words about all hazards approaches, community approaches, locally facing approaches, integrated approaches. I smile when I hear these words because I know that represents the way forward. I can see Ciro Ugarte smiling as well. But that local versus global, because what we've seen in the pandemic more than anywhere else is that local inequities in access to healthcare, in access to public health services, local failures of the system amplify and compound each other all the way to the top. And if we think that global solutions are going to solve what are inherent, embedded gaps in community capacity, community-based surveillance, in community agility and resilience, then we're going to go nowhere. Global health security is fundamentally based on local and national health security, connected by global goods, global services, global sharing, and shared accountability for the health and welfare of the populations that we serve. Again, many of you raised the issue of attacks on healthcare. We will continue to report, to verify and report out on all attacks on healthcare, and hope that other bodies will pick up that information and data and take the necessary action for any criminal investigations that are required. Again, a number of you mentioned the prevention of sexual exploitation and abuse. We take this extremely seriously. We are striving very hard to improve our performance and do what no humanitarian should do, which is bring more harm into a world of harm that many people face in fragile, conflict-affected and vulnerable settings. We continue to support the DG's efforts and the work of the new directorate in achieving this. And Dr. Sosa and myself and the other ADGs and the regional emergency directors are fully committed to improving our performance in this regard. On the issue of people, the power of any programme, your ministries of health, your governments, your health systems, the power of our programme is its people, all the genders whom serve in this programme, and I'm proud to lead that workforce. But at the same time, we continue to remember those we have lost, and even those 2.5 years, we continue to remember the loss of Dr. Pete Salama. We thank you, our donors, for funding this programme. We thank you especially for the funding to the Contingency Fund for Emergencies. It has entirely transformed this programme's ability to be responsive to your needs and react quickly in times of crisis. I would propose finally to say that the decision to create the Emergencies programme was a very wise one in retrospect. Even wiser was establishing that programme within the World Health Organization and retaining that, because we would like to thank as a programme our staff. You've thanked your staff, but I would like to take this moment to thank the staff in the World Health Organization, our partners who work with us in your governments all over the world, our regional emergency directors, our country leads, our country representatives, our regional directors, and the directors of other divisions across WHO who've worked with us. We are not perfect by any means, but we have worked so hard. Our staff have worked so hard to serve your needs, but we are not a finished product. We're 5-6 years into our creation. We've been in a constant process of response, and I think this is the new reality. There is no such thing anymore as preparedness and response. It's response, 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 and preparedness and response. It is a continuous circular process. Multiple emergencies we face while trying to deliver healthcare for our populations. So the ability to continue to respond while at the same time learning, preparing, changing, adapting is the new reality that we all face in the world. And that agility is something that will serve us well into the future. But I would just say that our programme is not yet sustainable. It is not yet in a position where it doesn't need the full support of our member states, the full support and constructive input from our IOAC. But again, in finality, we stand, all of us, on the shoulders of the health workforce that delivers on health care, delivers on emergency response, and we look forward to continuing to support you in future. Dr. Sosa will make some more specific remarks. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Fall, the floor is yours.
Like always, difficult to speak after you, so I will do it in French. It'll be more original. Permettez-moi d'abord.
At the outset, allow me to thank Felicity Harvey and Mr. Gupta from the IOAC. I think their work has been absolutely vital in giving guidance to the program. The program was created in 2016, so it's a 6th birthday, and it was resolution 69-9, which lay behind the creation of the WHE, and I think without it, we would be in a much more difficult situation in dealing with the pandemic. Mike and myself, and our role is to try to keep the philosophy of the program going. And one team throughout the 3 levels of the organization, a clear line of command. We need to be credible and predictable partners in responding to the needs of member states. And that's why updating the framework for health emergencies has been very important. We've had very wide-ranging consultations with the regional emergency directors. Most of them are here. And now that is ready to be published. In its new version, we've taken into account the lessons learned, and we have reflected our zero-tolerance approach towards sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment. And we've got some concrete measures on that in this version. When we do risk assessment for public health systems, we've borne in mind a risk assessment for sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment. So no request now is accepted without taking into account that risk assessment for sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment. We need to have the same framework response within countries, and we've heard that from EMRO, from Sudan, and we know that's very important. We know that Malaysia is already implementing this too. So this is a very clear framework for WHO today, and we need to take this opportunity to have this global health architecture. We need to take that opportunity to have the same thing within countries, because it's much more predictable when you have this alert system in place for emergencies. We're also going to continue to work on the basis of performance. You can't have emergency response without performance. We're a program like any other program, but we need to coordinate with other WHO programs, because when you have an emergency, other programs suffer too. And with this theme, Health for Peace, Peace for Health, at this assembly, this takes us to the very heart of this issue. We have more than 300 million people who are suffering from health emergencies. We have climate change too. Just in 2021, this was 250 million. We have more and more crises, more and more emerging challenges, including COVID-19. But we shouldn't forget old problems such as cholera. 21 countries now are suffering from a cholera epidemic. And we have a roadmap for cholera, which must be a priority. And I'm delighted to see the commitment to that. We saw that yesterday at the round table. Yellow fever, again, another challenge which is re-emerging. In 2026, we are aiming to protect 1 million more people, and we need to focus on the most vulnerable populations.
I just omitted one point, Chair. When I spoke to our workforce on the emergencies programme, was as of today, 3,240 people working all over the world. Sometimes there's a misconception that all of these people are occupying bureaucratic chairs in Geneva. Just to reassure you that 17% of that workforce sits in Geneva, 565 people. The rest are in regions and in countries, representing 83% of the workforce of this programme. 24% of the total workforce of this programme works with the African Regional Office or in countries in the African region. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lyon and ADG Fowle. I heard from Dr. Lyon that your workforce is working very, very hard and dedicated work. I think the committee would like to show our thanks to your workforce. Thank you very much for joining me. And then I think this committee overwhelming heard support of the work of IOAC. So I think I would like to move to consider whether the committee is willing to take notes. So I would be more specific. Is the committee ready to note the report of the Independent Oversight and Advisory Committee for the WHO Health Emergency Program as contained in document A75/16, and to note the relevant section of the report pertaining to this discussion, WHO's work in health emergencies as contained in document A75/10 Liv 1. Are there any objections? I see no objections. Therefore, these two reports are noted. Thank you very much. Before announcing the suspension of the discussion on item 16, I have one reminder and three announcements. A reminder is just the explanation of ticket you have bought. At 2:30, when we resume, we will return to our discussion on this item, focusing on sub-item 16.3 WHO work in health emergency when member states, as agreed, will be provided with an opportunity to make interventions on 2 draft resolutions contained in documents A75/A-Conf/6 and A75/A-Conf8. The roll call vote will follow. Then there will be an opportunity for member states to provide an explanation of vote. So, at 2:30, we will look at 2 conference papers. First, each representative of co-sponsors of each resolution will speak for 4 minutes. Then floor is opened for other member delegations to speak for 3 minutes. Time is should be strictly observed. So I will enforce it. I mean it. So I have Japanese watch as well. So now this is the ticket you have bought. So please be reminded. So that's number 1. Few announcements. One is I said earlier that informal discussions with regards to conference paper 7 starts from 12:30, but due to physical arrangement of the room, that will start from 1 o'clock, 13 hours, 1 o'clock. In the same room, room 24. Same room, 24. But the starting time is not 12:30, but 1 o'clock. That will continue up to 2:30. So you have arrangement was done not to make you choke by sandwich. So that is what arrangement was made. So that is one announcement. Second announcement is that before we break, I would like to inform the delegates that strategic roundtable towards a new architecture for health emergency preparedness, response, and resilience. 10 proposals for a safer world will take place at 1 o'clock, same hours, 1 o'clock in room 26. Room 26. Roundtable is room 26. Informal discussion is room 24. So that is 2 announcements. My very, very last announcement, and for me it's not a good one. We, Bureau, myself, 2 chairs, and rapporteur work very well for me. And I'm very fortunate, have very competent 2 vice chairs. But unfortunately, Dr. Mariam Abdul Richards needs to engage herself in very important national duties on emergency purpose. So I think she will leave this conference. This is the last session. Yes. So may I thank her. Thank you. Now, I don't stand anymore between of your lunch and other engagement. So I declare the meeting is suspended. And we will meet at 2:30 sharp, and we will start. Train will start 2:30 sharp. Thank you.